Hi, hello, it's me, Abdullah, and this is like the ninth time of me taking this video because it wasn't extensive enough every time. But here is a extensive video on a breakdown of our experiment. So the experiment's goal, or our main idea, or whatever, was, does being timed affect how well people can perform? Short-term stress-induced memory. This all stems from AP Chemistry. We used to take a reading quiz called RQs, reading quizzes, and they were 2 questions, multiple choice, not that hard, but it was timed, and Mr. Hevel loved to emphasize that it was timed. He would get a timer and say, guys, look, you have 20 seconds, 5 seconds left, guys, better start writing. And even though we know the content, we studied a lot, we just never could answer them because we just blink and we panic and get stressed. And then as soon as the time's done, we're like, oh, I know the answer. Like, why didn't I put that? So then we wanted to simulate that the best we could and have a direct comparison to what we thought was a comfortable scenario. So no time pressure. You're just chilling. You can just answer the questions whenever you feel like it. So let me tell you what we did. We got Abhinav, Pranav, and one other person who doesn't want to be named for some reason. We gave them a 3-minute CPR video and then timed them per question, so how long it took to answer per question, then got their overall score. So the average time is about 17 seconds to get a 7.5 out of 10, which was good. I think Pranav got 9. I think Abhinav got a 7. I think someone else got a 5 or 6, I don't know. So it all averaged out to like 7.5. And we said, okay, it takes the average person about 17, let's call it 20 seconds to answer these questions. What if we cut that in half? Give people 10 seconds to answer questions. How would that affect? And then we said, okay, what if they're sitting right next to people who don't have that 10-second requirement? Would they do worse because there's even extra pressure socially? So we got 10 people in a room. 5 of them are timed, 5 of them are untimed. We did like timed, sitting next to untimed, sitting next to timed, so it was like alternating seating arrangement. And we gave them all a 3-minute CPR video. I think a different one than what the pilots got. We called them pilots. And then we gave them a 10-question quiz. This 10-question quiz had 8 MCQ, 2 FRQ. So overall, the timed version had an average of 5.1 out of 10, whereas the untimed version had a 7.4. So 7.4 was greater than 5, so the untimed did better than the timed. When you compare the results, it's actually a big difference, especially in like an exam. 2 points is a lot. So it's a difference between 50 and 70. So we did a survey, and then the people who were timed said that they felt obviously time pressure because they could barely read the question and they had the answer and they're all panicking and there's more questions at the end. And then they also had the annoyance of people right next to them who were untimed. And they're like, oh, I have to take this time test and there's chilling right next to me. It's so annoying. So then we asked the untimed people what they thought. And they kind of took longer. They took on average 23 seconds. And we think it's because that they're kind of reveling in the fact that they have the advantages. So they're kind of like, oh, look at this fool while I'm like casually taking this test. The other person next to me is panicking. So there's maybe some distractions there. But the conclusion and the results is that untimed will obviously do better than timed. And we're kind of being extreme with being verbal about how much time you have left, emphasizing the seconds, being in your face and telling you these things. Sitting you right next to someone who has the untimed version also stresses you out. So when people feel rushed, their ability to encode and retrieve information drops. This explains why people do worse on timed exams. And this also explains what we told Hevel for an entire year is that, hey, we know the exam, we know the content, we all learned it just as well as everyone else, but how come you just can't manage the time? It comes down to just knowing how to work under pressure. It's a good skill you need to know to have, especially if you're going into medical fields and when you're using chemistry for something beyond in the future. Or really any job, you have to know how to do things quickly. So this helps explain why students perform worse under pressure with a time constraint. You can give someone that they've been doing their entire life, like Max playing a piano or something like that. As soon as there's a timer, his performance will drop. Why? I think this explains why. I think it's pretty extensive experiment showing how, even at a bit of extreme measure, you could argue that we were being a bit extreme. The concept is the same. You do worse when you're timed. In fact, there are some people who took like the first 6 questions who were timed and just gave up at the end. They said, I'll just put whatever because they didn't know what else to do. Okay, well, I think that's a pretty good summary. I hope it's long enough and creative enough to get the point, because we need extra credit. Please, I'm just forcing. Give me that extra credit.